Let's go back in time. Hey everybody. So I saw 24, which is a new Tamil movie. This movie was directed by Vikram K. Kumar. He also wrote it. And the main star is Suriya. He plays three characters. Suriya, Manny, and Setharaman. Sorry. Athreya is the bad guy, the villain, and he is the twin brother of Setharaman, and then Manny is the son of Setharaman. So he plays all three characters. So this is a time-traveling science fiction drama action, not really too much action, but sci-fi thriller. And I will have a link to the trailer in the description below, so check that out so you can see it. You can also see my reaction to it. I did not do a reaction for the second trailer because I went into the movie like the next day, and I was okay with what I had already seen. I didn't really want to see any more before I went in. So this is going to be a spoiler-free review in the beginning, and then when I get to the spoiler section, I will let you know, and then we'll talk about all the spoilers from the movie for those of you that have seen it. But for this first part, it's going to be my spoiler-free review, so no worries, I'm not going to give anything away. So like I said, this is a sci-fi Tamil movie. The theater I was in was packed. I mean, it was packed. And this is the day that Captain America Civil War came out. So I was really impressed. However, I was the only non-Indian in the theater. And the guy sitting next to me looked really confused at first, as if I had wandered into the wrong theater. And he looked at me and he's like, "Do you speak Tamil?" Because I saw the Tamil version. Because they also, oh, by the way, the theater was showing both Tamil and Telugu versions of the movie. And I said, "No, I need the subtitles." I think I was the only person in the theater that needed the subtitles. It sounded like everyone else was able to speak Tamil and understood what was going on. But it was very interesting. I mean, the whole theater was packed. So like I said, Suriya plays three characters. He plays twin brothers and then the son of one of the brothers. Each character is very different, and they do a very good job of distinguishing which character is which. So you can just look at a character and know which one it is instead of having to hear them talk. I really like that kind of aspect because when you're setting up a scene, you don't want the audience guessing which character this is if they're using the same actor. You want to be able to just know. But I did find it kind of funny that the villain had a goatee. Not because I have a goatee, but whenever you watch any doppelganger type storylines or twin brothers and one of them is evil, the evil twin or the evil doppelganger always has facial hair. I don't know why, but they always have facial hair. I guess we're just evil because we have facial hair. So there were 3 songs in the movie, and I'm not going to talk about those right now. I'll talk about them in the spoiler section. One of them I did not like, 2 of them I did. But that's all I'm going to mention on those right now. Just that there were 3 songs, and I did like 2 of them. One of them I was not a big fan of. So the time traveling aspect was very different from a lot of time traveling movies, and I like that. I did like that. It worked. It worked for the story, and I have some theories on how it worked, which will be again in my spoiler section. But I did like that it was different from a lot of other time traveling movies, that they tried to come at it with a fresh perspective. There were a couple of logic faults that I guess would need explaining from the producers and the writers just to, fill in those blanks. But other than that, I don't think it hurt the story any. It was more of just like, how did that happen? And then I was over it. So it wasn't that bad. So when it comes to like cinematography, directing, and animation, the directing was pretty standard. There was nothing like too out of the ordinary. There were a couple of really great shots or moments, like the creation of the watch. I thought it looked really cool, but it was impractical. It was basically a way of kind of looking steampunk with some lightning. And so the visual was neat, but it's a very impractical way of creating something. But it did look cool. Even though the directing and everything weren't out of the ordinary, the lighting and the cinematography were very crisp. So every frame, for the most part, had a very clean, crisp look to it. And I did like the way it was lit. So all in all, I really liked the movie. I thought it was fun. I liked the time traveling, thrilling aspect of it. And I even liked some of the love story between the two. I thought they were cute. I would give it an 8 out of 10. And I would suggest seeing it in theaters if you get a chance. I did like it. It did have some faults, but nothing that distracted from the overall story. Spoiler time! Dun dun dun! Alright, so now we're going to start talking about spoilers. This is where we get into the nitty-gritty of everything, and yeah. Suriya played all three characters, but I think he had the most fun with the villain. Even though there were moments where he was a little over the top, it looked like he was having a lot of fun doing it. And I can see that, because if I was in a movie and I got to play a villain, that would be the most fun part of playing any character, is playing a villain. So I liked how much he was having fun with the villain, but I thought the villain was a little too villainous, if that makes any sense. It was almost an illogical step of villainy. But I didn't care, because I found his version of a villain very entertaining, and it worked with the movie, so I was fine with it. But I could see how much fun he was having playing that character. So like I said in my spoiler-free section, there was one song I didn't like, and there were two songs that I did, and these are my reasons why. So the first song happens after he figures out how the watch can change time, whether go forward, go backward, or stop time for 30 seconds. He figures that out, and then he goes out onto the street. They start like a song and dance number. He's singing about it. People are dancing with him in the street. And then for no reason, just bluntly, they drop down underground, and then he's wearing they turned it into an MTV pop music video. And it threw me out of the movie. I'm like, what is that? What are they doing? I don't mind if the song has nothing to do with the movie, but don't start the song as if it has something to do with the movie and then drop it into an MTV Justin Timberlake or Bieber video. That didn't make any sense to me. And even though it doesn't have to make sense to me, it was too stark of a change too quick, and I was turned off by it. I'm like, I don't want to watch the MTV pop music video. I wanted to watch what they were starting to do. Because what they started doing was interesting. Where he gets on the street and they're dancing in the street and he's singing about it. And then all of a sudden I'm watching Justin Bieber. I'm like, oh, no. So I didn't like that at all. And I know some people may disagree with me. But from my point of view, that threw me out of the movie and took me out of the moment and turned it into an MTV music video. And I just didn't care about the song after that. And I was just waiting for the song to be done. But for the second song, I was totally into. In the second song, Manny is trying to convince Priya that she's in love with him by the fact that she can see him everywhere. So he's like freezing time and then moving positions, and she'll look over and she'll see the gardener is him, or she'll see the waiter is him. And she thinks she's going crazy in love because she's seeing him all over the place. And so they have a song about that. And throughout the whole song, that's the theme, is him popping up as different characters through the scene. And I thought that was a really good song. I had fun with it. I liked the way it was mapped out, the dancing, like the whole part of that sequence. I was involved in that song. So I enjoyed it. The third song is a fantasy song, but unlike the first song, which started out in one tone and then drastically changed to an MTV song, the third song felt like a fantasy song that's inside their head the whole time. So it's not like they started with one tone and changed. Like they just went with that tone for the whole thing, and it felt like it was what they were thinking in their mind, and I'm okay with that. And I thought the video part and the song, the way it was filmed and everything, it looked good. But it was basically a music video. They kept it as a fantasy in your head kind of song the whole time. And so I was on board for that. The score and the theme music I did like. However, that 12-note theme that you hear in the trailers that they played that way too much. They played those same 12 notes over and over and over again for anything that had to do with any kind of suspense or drama or something that was supposed to be intense. They played that same 12-note sequence in a loop, and that got tiresome pretty fast. However, it wasn't through the whole movie, so we got some of the, the theme songs for the love and all this other stuff, and those themes were okay. They didn't distract me from the movie at all. They added to the tension or the tone of what was going on at the moment, so the music was good for that. But that 12-note section got tired pretty quick. However, it sounded great in the trailer, but that's only because it's a 2-minute trailer. It's not a 3-hour movie. Time travel. There are many ways of doing time travel in movies. However, most of them include the physical movement from a person in today, physically move them to a past time or a future time. This movie did it different. They did not physically move the person through time. It seems like they only moved their consciousness. Now, one of my theories is that they have the watch on, and what the watch does is the watch maps the brain, it maps the consciousness of the wearer or whoever's touching it, and then saves that information. Then the watch physically moves through time, and when it goes back to the body, that same body, it remaps that consciousness onto the brain of that time period. So that's why they can remember everything, is because that person's consciousness from the future was mapped and stored onto the watch and then reloaded onto the brain of the person that it went to for that time period. The only flaw in that is when someone else is touching the watch. So when the bad guy grabs the watch and his consciousness goes back in time, it's not just the watch wearer. His younger body has his current mind as well. So it means that the watch is reassociating the brain's consciousness to someone else's body that is not connected to the wearer of the watch. And then that gets a little fuzzy, because then you're like, well, maybe the consciousness is automatically gravitated to its physical body no matter what time and space it's in. Or if it's dependent on the wearer of the watch, he should have gotten both consciousnesses into the same brain. So it's a little fuzzy on that afterwards, but if you just stick with the idea of the person wearing the watch gets their consciousness mapped and then reloaded once the watch goes back in time, then it makes sense. It just gets a little fuzzy when someone else touches it that's not wearing the watch, but they still go back in time. Now, it's very easy to get paradoxes when you have time travel movies. And that's one of the biggest things that writers have trouble with, is making sure they're not getting into any weird paradoxes. They solved that with the watch, because the physical body is not moving through time, just the consciousness. So the consciousness can only move through time during the age of the person. At the end of the movie, he goes all the way back, Manny goes all the way back to when he was like 1 year old or 6 months old or something like that. And he has the watch, it's huge on his shoulder and everything. But he has all of the memories from when he was 26. So that shows that he can't go any farther back in time than when he existed. He could not go back to 1945. He can only go through time in the time period that he physically lived, because his consciousness consciousness would need to be mapped onto his physical body. That stops a lot of paradoxes. So one of the major paradoxes is, for time traveling movies, if you go back in time and you kill your grandfather, can you do it? Because if you kill him, you never existed. And if you never existed, you never went back in time to kill them. And that creates a paradox. With this, they solved that because you can't go farther back in time than whenever you existed. And I'm sure if you go back in time a few years and you start changing things, now the future is different. So just changing the consciousness instead of the physical body solves a lot of problems. And I was really impressed with that. I like that fact of the storyline. Oh, I'm going to shoehorn in a thought because I'm editing. Hey, the joys of being the editor. While I'm editing the video, I get to see some of my theories and thoughts and stuff that I'm talking about. And it made me think right after that sequence was, what happens in the future? Because the movie didn't touch on the future too much. It had one scene where it went about like 20 minutes in the future. He sees it rains and he saves his mom's laundry from becoming wet and ruining the laundry, and then saves a guy from slipping on a banana and that kind of stuff. But if the theory that I have about mapping the brain and going back in time to move the consciousness, how come they didn't show anything that happens in the future? And I would say it's because if the watch is actually mapping your brain, mapping your consciousness and moving it in the past, then it can't really do that for the future. If you watch that sequence, when he goes into the future, he's surprised at what's going on 20 minutes later. He's not thinking about what happened leading up to those 20 minutes, which means the watch had mapped his consciousness, moved it 20 minutes into the future, and became its new consciousness. So he didn't know what happened in the 20 minutes in between. So if he goes too far into the future, he's just going to be utterly confused. And then if he goes back in the past, he's going to delete everything that he knew and would have to start over again. So with the theory of what the watch is doing with consciousness movement, it only works going to the past. It can't work going to the future. And I think that's why they didn't touch on it very much in the movie. There is a bird. And this bird, I think it was a hawk. It had 3 scenes in the beginning of the movie and then nothing else. So I don't know if there's a symbolism of the bird that I'm missing. Is it a god concept? But basically the bird does 3 things that are pivotal to the movie. Like they have to happen or the movie can't happen. The first is when there was a guy on the roof on the side house and he's trying to hook up the electricity. And the bird swings by and scares him. He drops the wires. So there's live wires on the ground. Then he flies into the window while they're creating the watch, and one of his feathers falls through and glides down into the liquid and changes the color of the liquid from red to green, probably because it has a life essence. And that creates the watch positively and makes it work. The third is he flies up near the roof, one of his feathers goes through the vent, catches on fire, blows up the propane tank, and that's why the bad guy is paralyzed. All 3 of these things have to happen for the movie to work. So you have to have the feather in the liquid, turning it green with the life essence to make the watch work in the first place. You have to have the explosion to give the villain a reason for wanting to go farther back than 24 hours, because the watch can only do 24 hours. And you have to have the electrical wires live on the ground, because that is how our good guy recharges the watch and is able to stop time and kill the bad guy. But this bird never shows up again. It just shows up, does these 3 things, and disappears. No explanation, no reason why. And I'm wondering, is this some kind of a god, like, manipulating what was going on, and this god came down as the form of a bird and created these 3 scenarios so that the whole sequence could happen? Or is it just a bunch of happy circumstance just coincidences that made the story happen. It's a cool thing to wonder about, but I don't know if it's ever going to be really explained. It just seemed like spontaneous coincidences, but it is the pivotal point of the entire story. So the freezing effects. Now, I had talked in my Surat review about how to light rain. So you have to light it well enough so that the reflection off the water droplets goes to the camera so you can pick up the rain. If you watch the Surat trailer, they do a high, far over left lighting so that it lights the left half of the rain droplet. That way you see the rain on the camera, but it doesn't hinder you from seeing the actors. If you do a direct overhead front light, it will light the entire rain droplet, which will reflect on the camera and then blind you out and you can't see the actors. So you either have to do a left or a right so that you only get half the rain droplet. If you have no light and you do a backlight, you can see the rain, but it would be a dark color. And if you don't do any front, side, or back lighting of the rain, you won't see the rain. But when they do the freezing effect for the rain, that's all CG. They can put the lighting wherever they want. Someone had asked what I thought about the lighting of the rain in the time freezing sequence. And it's lit well, but they didn't actually have a lighting department lighting that. It was all the CGI department lighting it enough so that you could see the rain. One of the freezing scenes I do want to talk about is in the office building. So the way you do a time freezing moment like that, you have to have a three-dimensional rendering of a moment. What they do is they take a ring of cameras, a bunch of cameras, and they take the same photo at the same time. And then they're able to render all of the different angles of that picture. And that would give them a 3D rendering of a still picture. Then they use a green screen and they map out where all of the objects and people are in that picture so that the actor can avoid everything and not actually bump into it. And then if he interacts with something, they use CGI for the interaction. But in the office scene, there's a part where after he avoids everybody and he gets through, he takes the name tag off of a guy. But he can't physically touch a 3D rendering of a picture. So what they did, and this is very simple, but it caught my attention and I really loved it. That guy that's wearing the name badge, he's just an actor standing really still so that the main actor can pull it off of his head. But he's not actually part of the original photo that was taken for the CG moment. And when I saw that, I was like, oh, I see what they did there. It caught my attention. I really liked how they pulled that off because if you just watch it and you're not aware of how they do it, it looks seamless and it makes sense. But for people that know how it's done, you're like, oh, that guy is just being really, really still. He's doing a very good job of not doing anything. So good job, Mr. Stillman, with your badge. Those effects were good. I really liked that. The CGI of the baby crib, I didn't really like that too much. However, it wasn't distracting from the movie. It was just, you can tell that the CGI for the stuff that the baby crib did wasn't as good as everything else in the movie. But it did facilitate a really funny joke. The villain, says something, the crib decides that it's the baby crying because he's screaming out. And so it brings up a pacifier and sticks it in his mouth. And that got a laugh in the theater. I laughed too. I thought it was a funny joke. But the CGI didn't look that great. But it still worked. It worked for that scene. Now there was one scene that I did not like. And that was the one fight scene that was in the movie. And it's because it was not filmed very well, I don't think. They did what a lot of American movies do, and I hate it when we do it also. Is they do shaky cam one move cut, shaky cam one move cut, shaky cam one move cut, edit. It's just, you kind of know what's going on, but it just throws it around. Pretty much it's because you don't have enough time to train the actors to do a fight sequence, and so you can only do one move at a time. And that's why they do the shaky cam one move cut, is because they can only film one cut at a time. I just don't like that kind of fight scene because it's not that good. So I'm glad they only had that one fight scene. It was watchable for that one time, but I'm glad they didn't do that for anything else. They didn't have any big fight scenes other than that. The love story was cute. I liked the little stuff between the main characters. Some people say it was dragged out, but I thought it was cute, especially the, him trying to convince her that she can see him everywhere, and and the whole family dynamic stuff was cute. They didn't have too much of it, so it was okay. I did like the dynamic between him and his adoptive mother. I liked that storyline. I thought that was a little touching. And I liked how they wrapped it at the end where he knew it was her. Like, basically he was going to stay in contact with his adoptive mom that had raised him the whole time, even though he has his birth parents with him now. So I did like that little wrap up, that bow tie that they put at the end. I did like that. So there was one thing at the end that I did not like, and it's a sequel bait, basically. He's got the watch. The wife says, get rid of it, throw it away. This has only caused us trouble, blah, blah, blah. And he literally throws it into the woods. He doesn't destroy it. He doesn't break it. He doesn't deactivate it. He just tosses it into the forest. Now you get a sequel. It doesn't make sense, because if this is causing so much problems, wouldn't you just destroy the watch? But those are my thoughts on 24. What did you guys think? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Give me some reasons why. What did I get right? What did I get wrong? Comment below. Let me know. Like, share, subscribe. Tell your friends. And I will see you on the next video.